My hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Yeah, blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Man-made terror, 100 jaws of death. Battle cross my depths, I'll pause your breath. I caught you, you sing down 40,000 leagues. Bleeding to death with no arms and short sleeves.
Let the battle commence!
Let the battle commence is right, people. It is Friday night. This is the Shark Attack. I am yours truly, Sean Williams. We got a lot to cover, got a lot to talk about, so that's why I rushed right into the mic drop. So, people, let's get right to it. First off, I gotta give props to the WWE about something. And that's, I actually enjoyed, quite a few people that I've seen talking about it. The contract signing between Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles for their last man standing match at Money in the Bank. It was done backstage, which is a big change considering most of the time you see it take place in the ring, and always when it takes place in the ring, there's a confrontation between the two people signing the contract. Given that we still got the confrontation, including AJ Styles smacking the taste right out of Shinsuke Nakamura's mouth, but it was different setting, different atmosphere, and I enjoyed the change. It's always nice when WWE can actually vary it up every now and then. Now, speaking of Money in the Bank, it's now official that Elias Samson, I'll still call him Elias Samson regardless of what WWE does, will take on Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental title. I'm wondering if we will actually see them put that belt on Elias Samson. I mean, here's the thing. He's over. I mean, I know a few people that are not big on him, whether it's the gimmick or whether it's his ring skill or both, or just the direction WWE's taken with him, but for better or for worse, he's over. I mean, his gimmick didn't really fit in NXT because it was something that was kind of, I guess you could say it was bigger than NXT at that time. And Triple H has said he never intended on keeping Elias in NXT for that long. Which I guess it makes some sense. But, I can't help but think maybe WWE is thinking, let's give him a belt and see what he can do. Because let's face it, Seth Rollins is good with or without the belt. He's established, he just needs that push back to the main spotlight, which I think is just a matter of time. I wouldn't turn him heel because I just feel like, what could they give us that's new? Plus, we've already seen it with him, and don't really need to see it happen again. And plus, I don't know if you can get the crowd to actually boo Seth Rollins at this point. But other news that came out on the internet this week was Paul Heyman possibly leaving the WWE after SummerSlam. Now, I don't know what it means for Brock Lesnar, but I can tell you this much. If Heyman's leaving and Brock is staying, they got a big problem because part of the appeal and the mystique of Brock Lesnar has been having Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece. Because, let's face it, as big and as tough and as strong as Brock Lesnar is, he is not a talker. And frankly, I think if you take Heyman away from him, it's not going to work. So, I don't know what's going to happen between now and SummerSlam, but they better think fast. But maybe, just maybe, this may be the thing that makes Brock actually split, and maybe get the Universal title off of him, which I think is a huge disservice to everybody on that Raw roster. Because let's face it, I don't care who it is, they need to get that belt off of him, and soon. CM Punk and Colt Cabana apparently won in their lawsuit against WWE's doctor. I'm not going to go too much into that because, frankly, I don't really care about CM Punk, and I'm hoping in his UFC fight that's, last I heard, is supposed to take place on Saturday, I'm hoping he gets his butt kicked. Well, given he already got his butt kicked the last time when in the last 2 minutes. But I'm hoping he'll last even less than that. And I know I don't talk about TNA that much. Yeah, I know they're called Impact, but until they actually make some kind of an impact, to me, they're still TNA. But I gotta give them credit. I actually enjoyed the Last Rites match between Allie and the Undead Bride, Su Yung. I mean, Allie has come a long way in my opinion, and I find with looking at Su Yung, and even though Rosemary, who currently she's injured right now, I look at Su Yung and I look at Rosemary, which, let's face it, those two are going to have a collision course at some point. It's like a matter of who's creepier. But they both do the job well, and the match was actually pretty decent, and I kind of liked Allie's demonic bunny entrance that she kind of did. I mean, she's been referred to as the bunny a bunch of times, but she came out kind of like Rosemary, and even did a mix of her entrance and Rosemary's, which was interesting. And just seeing how Su Yung was getting all psyched out by how Allie was acting like Rosemary was pretty interesting. And it's probably one of the few times where I'll actually give props to TNA about something, but this was actually one of those times. Bret Hart is apparently pissed off at Eric Bischoff over his episode of 83 Weeks. That was centered on Bret Hart. And what else is new? Look, I may have some of my own opinions on Eric Bischoff sometimes, but let's face it. In WCW, when Bret Hart went there, he was a shell of what he used to be. Not so much the physical, but I think it was the mental and the emotional that just was not the same on him, following what happened in Montreal. But I don't know. I mean, the guy flip-flopped from being a face to being the heel, and he just came off as being just bitter, disgruntled, and pissed off. And it's not really, I think, what the fans in WCW were expecting to get out of Bret Hart, and I don't think it's what WCW was expecting to get when they got Bret Hart. And I remembered watching the match between him and Sting at Halloween Havoc, and I frankly just wasn't impressed. I mean, the Sharpshooter and the Scorpion Deathlock, given I know they're the same moves, but I don't know, when you see the two trying to do one move or the other on the other guy, I don't know, it just seems awkward. Now, one thing I'll say about with Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn, which for once I'm actually not complaining about anything with it. Then again, I think it's because I found nothing can be worse than the Bobby Lashley's sisters segment. But here's the thing, you cannot have Bobby Lashley coming out all smiles because, frankly, it just doesn't fit him. He's a big, muscle-bound guy. He's fought in MMA. We've seen him be a wrecking machine in TNA. Given nobody understands the headband, but the bottom line is you need him to be a badass. You need him to be this one-man wrecking crew. You need him to be what was that nickname they called him in TNA? Oh, Walking Armageddon. And when the smile fades on him and he's got that scowl and you see him just cut loose like when he shook Sami Zayn's hand and then crushed it, we need to see that Bobby Lashley. We need to see him pissed off, not happy-go-lucky, upsy-daisy kind of crap. And by the way, supposedly somebody had made today Upsy-Daisy Day. Seriously? Who the heck even uses that term or that phrase anymore? Ever. But that's getting sidetracked on that one. Anyway, I got more to talk about, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back right after this.
This is Brian H. Waters, co-host of The Wrestling Realm and the host of Break It Down with Brian H. You're listening to The Shark Attack with Sean Williams.
Shout out to my good buddy Brian Waters, him and Dwayne Allen, of course, of The Wrestling Realm, and which, as I am happy to announce, which they shared this on Twitter because of the salute they did to the NWO, where they did their own tribute to the old NWO promo with the black and white and all. And Eric Bischoff on Twitter actually tweeted them saying outstanding. So, as of right now, the Wrestling Realm is Eric Bischoff approved. So, mad props to both Dwayne and to Brian. You guys earned it. You guys are just wrestling intelligence personified, and I couldn't be happier for the both of you guys. You've come a long way with the Realm, and I couldn't be happier for the both of you. Alright, now for the next segment, which I have to say, well, people, this is one time or one moment from Raw that we gotta question authority here. And where we ask,
who's in charge over there? This is aggravating me now. What, I can't count on you people?
enough with the authority figures. First there's a commissioner, then there's a general manager. Now, thanks to Baron Corbin, we have a constable. What the hell is a constable on Raw? So you're basically just having him be this guy that's bigger than Kurt Angle and constantly second-guessing and arguing with him over any decisions that are made and that are somehow going to favor the heels. Seriously, why are you even pushing this guy in this angle? Do you really think this is even going to go anywhere? News for you, it isn't. It's like, is Constable translation for we couldn't think of anything else to do with this guy? Here's the thing. When he was first in NXT in the beginning, I was actually liking Baron Corbin. Given his rivalry with Bull Dempsey ended up being a complete bust. And really, instead of looking like a rival, you just had Bull Dempsey go from being a badass to being Baron Corbin's tackling dummy. And people started to boo Baron Corbin in NXT. You know why? Because they got tired of sitting there watching him demolish just jobber after jobber after jobber. The only thing that ever impressed me about Baron Corbin was the End of Days. I like that move, I like the originality of it, but you know what? I can take that move, give it to my creator wrestler, and that would look more entertaining than Baron Corbin. And here's, as much as I dump on Big Cass, and believe me, I have, the difference is I feel like there's more potential in Big Cass than there is in Baron Corbin. I mean, Baron Corbin has the charisma of a corpse. And if you really think putting him on constantly on Raw with this constable role is going to help him any, I got news for you. It isn't. There's just no way this thing is going to benefit Baron Corbin or, frankly, anybody else. And let's face it, WWE, you just did this because you can't think of anything else to do with this guy. And that's not helping. With Natalya getting hurt during her match with Nia Jax and that little confrontation involving Nia, Natalya, and Ronda Rousey, I'm starting to suspect that Ronda Rousey is not going to win the Raw Women's title and that Natalya may end up costing Ronda the belt. In fact, she may even backstab her, and that would lead to a match between Ronda Rousey and Natalya. Which, frankly, I think that might be the better way to go. I mean, look, Ronda is going to, even if she doesn't, Ronda is going to get the belt at some point. And it's foolish to think that they won't put the belt on her. But I gotta give her credit. I mean, some people were worrying she was going to pull the Brock Lesnar kind of treatment where she would only show up every once in a while, but she seems committed to this, I'll give her that. I mean, we haven't really seen what she can do on her own in a singles match because she hasn't had one. But let's wait and see what happens. I'll tell you one female MMA fighter that I'm not impressed with. I'm not impressed with Shayna Baszler. Yeah, she's an MMA fighter, so she can kick an ass or two, but in all honesty, her charisma is a flat line. And while the women's division is going through a transition in NXT, right now you have the only established kind of feud that you have going on for it is Shayna Baszler and Nikki Cross. And I was talking about this last week about that, and watching the clips again, honestly, I would not be surprised if Nikki Cross gets the belt. But I'm kind of hoping not, because if she gets the belt, then that most likely means Shayna Baszler's moving up, and she is nowhere near ready for that yet. So I'm not ready to see her get moved up, so I would say I would hope not, but at the same time, I really want to see a serious push for Nikki Cross. But I can understand, like I said last week, I can understand why she wasn't moved up with the rest of Sanity. Because she can make it on her own. They just need to push her in the right direction. And the crowd seems to like the fact that she's bat out of hell crazy. And hey, when in doubt, go with what works. Now, speaking of NXT, I called my shot out on my Facebook group, and I'm still standing by it. TakeOver Chicago, Ricochet versus the Velveteen Dream is going to steal the show. I don't think any match is going to come close. There's just none. I mean, we all know what Ricochet is capable of. The guy just defies belief with what he does. His athleticism and his charisma is just beyond reproach. And Dream is coming along nicely. He's not ready for the main roster, but he's coming along. And the only other match that I could see that even has a chance at matching or having a chance at even surpassing Ricochet versus Velveteen Dream is the street fight between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Which I gotta say, there is never... I've said this, that there's no face that's been more over in NXT than Johnny Gargano. But at the same time, there's never been a heel in NXT that's been more hated than Tommaso Ciampa. And I think part of the reason is because the two are such friends in real life that if you have such a good relationship with somebody, you're usually able to get the most out of it. And I think that's why we're getting the most out of this feud between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Now, somebody was suggesting to me, what if Candice LeRae betrays Johnny Gargano? Well, wouldn't be a shocker. But my only issue is we've seen the whole wife betray the husband thing before. So it's kind of been done to death. And also, I mean, nobody is going to buy that Candice LeRae, the real-life wife of Johnny Gargano, is dumping him for Tommaso Ciampa. There's just no way anybody's going to really buy that. I mean, at the time when Karen Angle, later Karen Jarrett, was married to Kurt Angle, nobody was really buying that whole, well, she's dumped, or when, even though it later turned out to be a double cross, that she was divorcing Kurt Angle. Nobody bought that, and it's just not going to work anymore. I mean, the only thing that I've seen that's more stale than that has been Big Cass with his whole, you're a little guy, so I'm going to pick on you thing. And that's the problem that's holding Big Cass back on SmackDown, is the fact that he's being the stereotypical big guy that we've seen time in and time out, and not giving us anything any different. At least with Braun, and I know some people have used Braun Strowman as a reference. Look, with Braun Strowman, he can talk enough, but he's also this, not just this big guy, but this one-man wrecking crew of a monster. And it attracts people. I mean, it's kind of like how people got attracted to Kane during his debut, how he was this big guy and played with fire a lot, and there was all the pyro. So that's the big difference. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, but we'll be right back to close up the show.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian H. Waters, and you're listening to The Shark Attack with Sean Williams.
Thank you again to Brian Waters, Mr. Main Event himself, host of the of Break It Down, and of course of the Wrestling Realm with the real deal Dwayne Allen. All right. So with that being said, as we're wrapping up the show, we're gonna do one quick from the mouth of the shark. So people, here's some knowledge from the mouth of the shark.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
God, that part of that movie never gets old. Now, one poll question from the mouth of the shark that I did was based on the Woken, Matt Hardy, and Bray Wyatt, the deleters of worlds. And I asked the question, has the Woken, Matt Hardy / deleter of worlds begun to lose steam? And of course my good friend Patrick, he commented on it. He said, more stagnant than losing steam. They need some antagonists. But I'm not going to ask too much of a creative who's convinced that Roman should beat Brock Lesnar for the title. Well, that's another story on that one. I mean, everyone, by now, those that know me know how I feel about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, and how those two just have zero chemistry in the ring, and none of their matches have been really that good. But back to the subject at hand, I can agree with that statement. I've said numerous times that a champion is only as good as the competition he has. They don't have any rivals for Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. And for the gimmick that they carry with the whole deleter of worlds, they need this. They need to have a rival. They need somebody to challenge them. I mean, maybe have the Authors of Pain who have been missing in action re-debut and challenge them. Problem is that I don't know how well the Authors of Pain can do without having Paul Ellering as their mouthpiece. I mean, Akam and Razor, they are not talkers. And we've seen that. So I'm a little skeptic on that one, but they do need something. Whether it's the Revival, whether it's the Authors of Pain, but they need something to maintain the momentum for Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. Otherwise, the Woken is going to not look broken, but look more like a bust. But we'll see what happens. We'll hopefully get something out of Money in the Bank. And no, I don't think the B team is going to beat Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. They're just not. Although, I gotta say, this B team thing is probably the most entertainment I've gotten out of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, which you wondered what it was going to happen after the Miz and had been moved to SmackDown and doesn't have his Miztourage anymore. Speaking of which, and my boy Brian Waters brought this up, saying that, or the idea of Big Cass if he was the Miz's hired gun against Daniel Bryan. That would make more sense. That would make more sense than, you're little, I'm going to kick the crap out of you. Which, the only thing that Big Cass seems to have done is tap out like a chump. But that would make more sense, and it would give some kind of direction for Big Cass, because right now, he's trying to act main event when he's not even close. Oh, and side note, to Enzo Amore with his little rap career that he's starting for himself, knock it off. Because, let's face it, man, you act like the WWE blew their opportunity with you. No, you blew it with them. Even if the charges were dropped on you, the fact that you tried to keep it from them, and you waited until they found out on the anniversary show that they'd been hyping up for weeks, even months even, you were practically begging for a pink slip, and the fact that you made so many enemies backstage with management, you didn't do yourself any favors. I mean, they say if you give a guy a long enough rope, he'll hang himself with it, but that's exactly what he did. He practically hung his career. And by the way, I gotta say, smart move I like the move of WWE's by having Leo Rush going to 205 Live. I think it's going to beef up that roster, which I feel like has gotten so much better over the course of the last couple months. And I'm really entertained by Cedric Alexander as the Cruiserweight Champion. And more, this is why the crowd was chanting "Hire Cedric" when the Cruiserweight Classic was taking place. And I think that Cedric Alexander has a bright future ahead of him. I like what they're doing with Hideo Itami, because if there's anybody that's got a ton to prove, it's him. Injuries may have sidelined him in the beginning, that's true, but this is one of Triple H's first signings, and this guy wants to prove that he's that good, that he can do, that everything that he can do that Triple H saw in him when he signed him, he wants to bring that to the table, and I have no doubt in my mind that he'll be able to do it. Alright, we're going to wrap things up for tonight. I want to thank you again for listening. Make sure you check me out on Podbean, and of course my Facebook group is The Shark Attack. And of course check out my other show, Variety Bites, where I talk about everything else outside of wrestling. And we'll be back next week, and starting with this episode, I'll be debuting this on my new YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out. Until next time, this has been The Shark Attack. I am Sean Williams, and people, I'm out. Good night now.